Hello and welcome back to School Life. In the last video, we were able to insert data from the user's phone and have them in our database. Then the second video we did was to fetch those users and display them to the users on a table. All right, let's go and test that out. Let's see. Insert a new user. Once we click on submit, we get a notification that user registered successfully. And when we click on view users, we scroll down, we see it has been added to our table, School Life Digital. So in this video, we're going to learn how to edit the user's detail. All right, so let's get started. So whenever we click edit, we want to edit any of this data, user's data that we have clicked on. So let's go ahead. So the first thing we need to do is on our root folder, we create a new file, which is edit.php. Then we go to index. All right, so in our index, this is our index. Okay, so we need this form. All right, so let's copy all of these and paste it inside of the edit.php. Then we go here and say edit user as our title. Okay, so we need to use our database connection. So we go to the users table, the users file, and we need to copy all of this. All right, so we just copy this PHP and paste it inside of here. All right, so let's do this. All right, and we're going to be using the get method. Okay, but before that, let's go back to our users, and this is how we use the get method. So once we scroll down under the edit column, where we have our button, we're going to pass a parameter here, a URL parameter. So we're going to say edit.php question mark, and we'll say ID is equal to then the user's ID. So we're just going to pass in the user's ID that is coming from the database and paste this inside of here. So we'll do ID. Okay, so how do we get this ID? From the users table, we have a column named ID. All right, so for each of these users, we want to pass in their ID in the URL parameter. So this is another way of using the get method to submit data through the URL. All right, so let's test that out and see what happens. So we go back to our page here and let's click on view users. So whenever we hover on any of the users, if you look at the bottom, just a moment. So whenever we hover on the edit button, if you look at the bottom, like at the bottom here, you'll see it says edit.php ID equals to 1. When I go to the next user, it says ID equals to 2, and so on and so forth. So dynamically we have the IDs. So let's click on the second user here. So once we click on edit, if you look at the URL, we have that passed over on our URL. So this is our URL, localhost webdev edit.php, and this is the parameter we have. The parameter is coming after the question mark, which is ID is equals to 2. All right, let's go ahead and use that ID and communicate to the database. All right, so we're going to change our SQL. We're going to add something here. So we're going to say select all from users where ID is equal to ID. So we set a placeholder here. So in our previous video, we use prepared statements. So we're going to bind that statement right away. So we do it like this. We say bind param. We input our placeholder ID, comma. All right, so we're going to be using the variable we're getting from the URL. So we're going to say ID, or you can say user ID. Okay, we'll start inside a variable called user ID is equal to get super global variable ID. Okay, so we're using ID here because in our URL parameter we have ID over here. All right, so whenever we do this, that ID will come and be stored inside of this variable. All right, so we're going to write user ID inside of here. All right, so we're going to do this. So if we should echo this out, okay, so we're going to echo out users. All right, using our print arrow. So once we save, let's refresh our page and see. So once we refresh, we see we have just that user ID. We have the user with the ID 2 displayed here. So if we go to our database, user with the ID is Paul James. All right, so let's go ahead and change the ID to, let's say, 4. We'll submit. We see we have another user, Femi Tayo. Let's go to our database and see the user with the ID 4 is Femi Tayo. So this is what we want to do. So let's go ahead and make it dynamic. So we'll just select this. All right, so one more thing we need to do is fetch the user details. Okay, so we just need to pass them around here. Okay, so we just say for each users as user. Okay, so let's take out the key. We don't need the key for now. All right, so let's store the user's data. So we'll say f name is equal to user, so that has to be a variable, user first name. Okay, first name like this. So the first name has to correspond with the column we have here. Yes, that's correct. So we'll do for last name also. We'll store it inside a variable. We say L name and last name. All right. Oh, we have double T's. So let's take out 1, and that is what all we need. So we just scroll down inside of our form. We're going to add a new attribute inside. So inside of the input for the first name, we're going to say value. Okay, we're going to echo out the value of the user. Yeah, we're going to echo out first name. So we say echo first. That has to be a variable. So f name, which is the variable we define at the top, and we do the same thing for last name. So value equals to L name, which is the last name. All right, so once we do this and we refresh, all right, so we have the value inside of our form, so that we can just easily delete and modify it as we want. Whenever we refresh, the value changes. So whenever we go back to our users table, any of the users we click the edit button on, it's going to fetch out that user's details and display them on the table here, on the form here, so we can just edit it. So the final stage is to send this to the back end and update the user dynamically. All right, and for us to be able to do that, we need to pass in the user's ID inside of our form also. So we're going to say input. So we're just going to use input for now. Let's use input text, and the name will be, let's say, user ID. All right, and the value is going to be the user ID, which you have at the top. So let's copy this and change this to user ID. All right, so if you scroll to the top, you see where we defined the user ID, which is coming from the URL parameter. All right, so once we save, refresh, we should have that here. So you see that the user ID is 5. Don't worry, we're going to get rid of this. If you look at the top, user ID is 5, and over here the user ID is 5. If we change the user ID to be 6, dynamically it's going to change also. All right, so the next thing we need to do is to send this to the back end. Okay, so we're going to be creating a new file, which is edit.php on our back end folder. Okay, all right, you can either say edit or updates. Okay, so let's do updates because we want to update the data. We'll say update.php. So inside our back end folder, we're going to create that file, and save it as update.php. And here we go. All right, so let's just go ahead and copy this code and paste it inside from the register.php. We'll paste it here because we're going to be using something similar. All right, so we're going to do this. So we already have our F name and last name. We just need to add one more thing here, which is the user ID. So we'll copy this and say user ID, user underscore ID. Same thing here, user ID. Okay, and we're going to change our SQL statement. So we're just going to take this out. So we're going to write an update statement inside of here, inside the code. We're going to say update users. I will say set first name is equal to F name. Okay, we'll set a placeholder. We'll separate it by a comma. Last name equals to L name, where ID is equal to placeholder for user ID, just like that. And we're just going to add one more bind statement here. We're going to change it to user ID, and the variable, that's user ID. Okay, and that is all we have. So we're just going to say, okay, user updated. All right, so we still have our success, our session here. So we want to redirect the user back to edit.php. Okay, so for now, let's just redirect the user back to edit.php, and let's pass the user ID in the parameter also. User ID, we're going to say ID is equal to user ID. Okay, all right, so that is that for now. I believe we are good to go. So let's go back to our edit.php. Yeah, we have everything. So we're using the post method to submit this data because we are sending it back to the back end through our user form. So let's change this our session messenger. So we're going to say user updated successfully. Okay, and for this, let's use alert info because we are updating our user. All right, so once we refresh, and let's say the user with the ID 6, we want to change the first name from Ifoma. Okay, let's change this last name. Let's say we'll say Moses. And once we submit this, and you see, it says user updated successfully. The first name came back as Ifoma, and the last name came back as Moses. So let's go to our database and check the user with the ID 6. Okay, so currently we have the user with ID 6 with first name Ifoma and last name Paul. So once we click on refresh, and you see Ifoma Moses. Okay, our code is running correctly. So two more things I'd like us to do. Instead of bringing us back to the in edit page, we want to take us back to the users page where we have the users table. So let's go there and say users. Sorry, okay, that's correct. Users.php. All right, then we need one more thing. Let's take this session message and take it to the users table. Okay, so we just copy the session message and go to the users, and we want it to display by the table here that we have updated our user. So let's paste it here and see. Now we'll go to the top here. Our session is started. That's correct. So we go back to our code and let's go to view users. Okay, before then, I'd like us to take out one more thing. So let's take out this input here. It's not looking nice. So all we need to do is go back to our edit, and inside of the user ID input, we change the type from text to hidden. So this way it's still going to be available, but it's not going to be available on the front end. It's going to be invisible. All right, so whenever we change, let's say we change this to Ifoma Peter. Okay, And let's just add one more thing. Let's say new surname. Okay, to make it more obvious. So once we click on submit, it's going to submit and take us to the users page. All right, we say submit, and it's taking us to the users page with our alert message that says user updated successfully. So let's look for Ifeoma, which is the user number 6. We say Ifeoma, and we see the surname as Peter, new surname. Once we click on edit again, it takes us back, and we can now take out this whenever we want. We click on submit, and yes, we have it working. So we have our table working dynamically. We can now edit the user's information. So let's go and edit this duplicate data. We have Paul James here. So let's change it to something else. So let's say Henry Mark. And once we click on submit, and here you go, we have Henry Mark. So this is what we want to do for this video, and the next video we're going to do the final step, which is to delete. So I told you, as a backend developer, you need to be able to do the CRUD operation. So when I say CRUD operation, I mean be able to create, read, update, and delete. So once you say CRUD operation, okay, this is it. It says in computer programming, create, read, update, and delete are the 4 basic operations. Okay, bracket actions of persistent storage. So once you're able to do CRUD operation, you can call yourself a back-end developer. And in this course, we're helping you to become a front end and a back end developer, which is a full stack developer. So these are the basics you need to know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. We are going to learn how to delete the users.